What's up, everybody? This is Jaron. Hope you're doing awesome. Okay, so I want to start off with a game today, and this is one of those games that's just fun. Like, it doesn't really tie into the lesson or anything like that. It's just something fun. And I know my kids, especially my younger kids, they love the game memory. Like the matching game where you have to figure out where the kind of the matching card is. They love that game. And so that's what we're going to play today. We're going to have to do it a little bit different, but I'm going to explain. So these are all going to be Disney or Pixar characters. That's what we're going to be matching today. So what you're going to see is when we start the game, you're going to see a bunch of cards on the screen, right? And we're going to flip them all over so you can see all of them. Right? And then we're going to give you like 10 or 15 seconds to memorize as much as you can, to remember where, okay, that one goes here and that one's with this. Like, remember all of that as much as you can, because after that, we're going to flip them all back over, and then we'll actually start our game. And how it'll work is one card will flip over automatically, and you have to remember where the other card was, right? And so we're going to give you a few seconds to remember, and okay, I think it's that one, and then we'll give you a few seconds, and then we'll flip the matching card over, okay, and we'll show you where it really was, and then we'll get rid of those two, and then we'll move on to the next one, and we'll do it until all the cards are gone, okay? So you ready? Here we go. So before we jump into our story today, I want to talk about a phrase that we use in church all the time, but I want to make sure we know what we're talking about when we say it, right? So you've probably heard the term share the gospel or tell people the gospel or whatever, and I want to talk about what that actually looks like. So to start off, as a family, talk about that. What does it mean to share the gospel? When we say that, what are we talking about? Maybe talk about a time where you've done that, or what that would look like, kind of a situation where here's what that means. Talk about that as a family. So sharing the gospel is just sharing the good news, right? That's what the word gospel means. And what it really means is the good news about Jesus, who he is, he's the Son of God, that he died on the cross and rose again and offers, eternal life, all of that. Like all that's it's telling people that. And so the story we have for today is a time where Paul did that. Now, before we jump to the story, I want to kind of paint a picture of what the scene was like, okay? Because Paul gets to this place where he does this, but there's a lot going on that I want us to make sure we understand. So first off, Paul gets to this place called Athens, and he's a missionary, right? So what that means is he's just going from town to town telling people about Jesus, right? Sharing the gospel. And then, as people come to believe in Jesus, he kind of helps start a church, and he kind of gets them up and running and going and teaches them for a while, and then he leaves because he's off to another town so he can tell more people about Jesus, right? So he's going from place to place, and he gets to this place called Athens. Now, Athens is in Greece, and you might not think you know much about Greece, but you actually know a little bit about kind of what they did. You ever heard the term the Greek gods? This is where it came from. So you've heard of like Zeus, and Ares and Poseidon, all these different gods. That what's called like the pantheon of gods is what it's called. These are the Greek gods, and for us it's like mythology, right? These are things that we read in stories or whatever. But during this time, that was actually their belief system. They believed in these gods. They worshipped these gods. They had different like altars and temples and stuff to all these different gods. And in fact, it was more than just these set of gods. Athens was a super like religious place and a spiritual place. They were really into religion and stuff like that. And people from all over the world went there, and so there was like different belief systems that they brought with them, and the people of Athens kind of just adopted it all. They started kind of believing in all of it, and so they believed in tons of other gods. And so Paul gets to Athens, and he's waiting for a couple buddies, right? He's waiting for Silas and for Timothy to show up. And so while he's waiting, he starts walking around the town. And as he's walking, he's noticing everywhere he goes, there's, a temple for this god and an altar for that god. And, there's all these different gods, kind of all these beliefs going on in Athens. And so like everywhere he goes, they're just all over the place. And he actually runs across this one, and there's an altar, and on the altar, it says, "To an unknown God." And so what was going on here is, the people of Athens, they believed that there's tons of gods, right? And there's probably gods that they hadn't even heard of yet. But they didn't want to offend that God that they hadn't heard of yet. And so they actually made an altar to the God that they hadn't heard about yet, and actually worshiped this altar because they didn't want to offend this God that they didn't even know about, right? And so that's kind of what's going on. So Paul's walking around and he notices this. And so as he's walking and learning, he starts talking to people. He starts telling them about God and who God really is, and he starts to get noticed. And so these guys be like, "Hey, you've got some ideas, you got some things going on, and some ideas that you have that, man, they're interesting. We've never heard anything like this before. Would you mind coming to like this council we have, where we kind of sit around and talk about this stuff? Would you come and tell us more about this?" And so that's where we pick up today. We're actually going to read a portion of kind of how he starts off talking to this council, this group of people. So in Acts 17, starting in verse 22, it says, "So Paul, standing before the council, addresses them as follows. 'Men of Athens, I notice that you are very religious in every way, for as I was walking along, I saw your many shrines, and one of your altars had this inscription on it, "To an unknown God." This God, whom you worship without knowing, is the one I'm telling you about. He is the God who made the world and everything in it. Since he is Lord of heaven and earth, he doesn't live in man-made temples, and human hands can't serve his needs, for he has no needs. He himself gives life and breath to everything, and he satisfies every need." So he takes this idea, this altar to an unknown God, and he uses it to tell people about okay, here's the God that you don't know. Here's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about, and let me tell you about him. And he talks about how he's actually the one true God, and he rules over everything, and he's the one that gives life and breath to everything. And he goes on in his speech to tell them about that he sent his son Jesus, and all of that stuff, right? He tells them the whole thing. And it's interesting because they have this altar to an unknown God, this God that they don't know. And the reality is, God wants them to know him. In fact, that's why God sent Paul. He sent Paul to Athens because he wanted them to know who he really was. because they didn't know. Now today, in our world, there are people that don't know God. And guess who he's sending? You and me. We have the same job as Paul. Our job is to go and find opportunities to tell people about God, about who he really is, about what he's really up to. We have the same job as Paul. Paul went around and just looked for opportunities. He looked for ways to tell people about God, and not just talk to them, but to help them to understand. And so, he looked for ways to have it make sense for the people he was talking to. He was looking for opportunities to tell people about God so that they could understand, that they could come to know God. That's our job too. We should be living our lives just going around looking for opportunities to talk about God, to tell people about who God is, about how much God loves them, what he's done for them, what a life with God it could be like for them. Like, that's our job. We should be going around looking for ways to do that. And again, not just talking at people. I'm not just talking about, walking around random guy on the street like, hey, you should believe in God. Like, that's not going to work, right? They're not going to do anything with that. But that's not what Paul did either, right? He spent time walking around the town, just understanding who these people were, what they were like, the things that they believed in, how they thought about things, so that he could tell them about God in a way that made sense to them. He took this altar to an unknown God. He took something that was theirs and went like, oh, I can use this. I can use this to help them understand who God is. And that should be our approach too. So it's not just talking at people saying, hey, believe in God. It's talking to people, getting to know them, asking questions, listening to them, getting their story of who they really are, what they've gone through, what they're dealing with, so that we can find ways to help them see who God is, so that they can understand who God is and how much he loves them. But he's relying on us. He wants to be known. He wants people to know him, and he's sending us. It's your job. It's my job. We're the ones who are supposed to go and tell people about God. Let's pray. God, thank you. Thank you for a really, really big job, really important job. There's so many people that don't know who you are. And God, you're looking to us. You're sending us to go and tell them. So God, we ask for just the reminders that we need to live our life that way, that we should always be on the lookout to find those opportunities to tell people about you and how much you love them. God, help us to do that. Help us to live life kind of on purpose like that we can go around looking for ways to do this. God, give us what we need to do it. And God, thank you. Thank you for just the chance to do that. We love you so much. It's in your son's name. Amen. All right, guys, that's all for today. I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you soon.